still there. So he accused Hans of some of the murders. So obviously Hans got took into jail. They found out later that some of the bodies didn't match the same, and that was associated with the fact that Hans was killing those particulars, but Hans would deny it. He ends up leading the police to where he put his last victim, but most of them are lost forever. So there's a really sweet monument in that cemetery that he had first buried his victim in. It's really pretty. It's very nice. The public was furious when they found out that because he was a police informant, the police didn't think that he was some sort of monster, and they didn't suspect him at all.
I could see the outrage. I feel like it slipped through a lot of people's fingers.
Buttery watermelon, you know?
Buttery watermelon.
His trial lasted for 2 weeks and required 200 witnesses to explain their account. So tenants, other randoms that are passing about the street, some of the police officers as well, and then some cohorts that he was working with, as well as Hans. He was clearly found guilty. He did confess. He was sentenced to be sent to the guillotine.
They did that? They did that?
Yeah, I mean, they still did guillotine overseas for a long period of time. Plus, it's a quicker death, except for the fact that your body still fires synapses off from both sides of the halves. Well, the eighths. He said, quote, "I never intended to hurt those youngsters, but I knew that if I got going, something would happen, and that made me cry. I would throw myself on top of those boys and bite through the Adam's apple, throttling them at the same time. I'd make 2 cuts in the abdomen and pull the intestines into a bucket, and then soak the blood and crush the bones until the shoulders broke. If I could get the heart, lungs, and kidneys, and chop them up and put them in my bucket, I'd take the flesh off the bones and put it in my waxcloth bag. It would take me 5 or 6 trips to get everything and throw it down the toilet or into the river. I always hated doing this, but I couldn't help it. My passion was so much stronger than the horror of the cutting and the chopping." Horror story.
That is so gross. It's cruel, it's disgusting, it's just foul.
Yeah. He's no good. And I left out, to be honest, that was gross, but I left out something else that he had said, and I was like, well, that's a bit much.
It's unnecessary, yeah.
That is, you are an aggressive person. That needs to not be anywhere. He had stood before the court and proclaimed, quote, "I accept the verdict fully and freely," before adding, quote, "I shall go to the decapitating block joyfully and happily." When Grans was found guilty, he cried hysterically. He may or may not have been involved. A lot of signs point to him being involved, but some of them kind of say no.
But he knew.
They think he knew.
I mean, when you're like, oh, well, I'll just come back later.
Right, which I'm not into, but a lot of this is coming from Haarmann's account, not Hans' account.
I feel like there's no way.
There's no way.
Hansi, you knew about this.
You knew.
You slippery little bastard.
He did get convicted of 27 murders. There are a couple that he was exonerated from because they think that Hans had done it, or they couldn't find enough evidence. I mean, you're not coming back from the guillotine.
Fact.
I mean, at least there's that. Also, he murdered one of his neighbor's kids, too. You look at this kid every day, and then you're like, you know what I should do? I should murder this kid.
And then you see his parents.
And you're just like, la-di-da, who cares?
Yeah,
It's
just like, it's a whole nother
horrid.
level. Yeah.
When the verdict was announced, he said, quote, "I want to be executed on the marketplace. On the tombstone must be put this inscription: Here lies mass murderer Haarmann." The court did not do that for obvious reasons.
And also, we don't care what you want, so there's that.
So he was decapitated within Hanover prison. He was put to death on the 15th of April in 1925 at 6 in the morning. His headless torso was buried in that courtyard, and
Tell me they threw the head in the river.
They wanted to take in his brain to see what was happening.
Yeah, I could see that.
And what could have maybe influenced this.
Yeah.
So they donated the head to the Kraepelin Brain Research Institute in Munich. They determined that his brain was, quote, "inflamed," which possibly led to personality changes. They kept 4 brain sections from it, but apparently someone stole them. Don't know why you'd need them. It was kept as a specimen in an institution where it was retained for a while in public exhibition. Someone actually, I read, had to translate this from German because it was only in German. Mm-hmm. Someone had said that they didn't see how it would actually help and therefore shouldn't be put on display because it's not like anyone can get anything from it just to come and gawk at it, right? He, before his death, had passed a note to police, a 4-page letter that summarized the relationship between himself and Hans and said that Hans was innocent now because you're going to drag his name through the mud, but now you're going to say he's innocent. What are you doing? Quote, Hans Grans has been sentenced unjustly, and that's the fault of the police, and it's also because I wanted revenge. Put yourself in Grans' position. He will question the existence of the Lord and justice because of me. May Hans Grans forgive me for my revenge and humanity. No one knows why he did that, and Hans had already, to what I've read, been killed.
I was going to say, so he's probably already dead. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's very strange. A lot of people think that because he couldn't kill him himself, he made the German justice system do it for him.
Yikes.
Mm-hmm. The statement would conclude with, quote, you won't kill me. I'll be back. Yes, I shall be amongst you for all eternity, and now you yourselves have also killed. You should know it. Hans Grans was innocent. Well, how's your conscience now?
That's fucked up.
There's a number of victims. Almost all of them were transient or people that were running away from their parents or trying to find gainful work because they were in a smaller town. There was a violinist who they found his violin case inside of Fritz's apartment. Mm-hmm. And that poor little baby 10-year-old.
I know. I have to not think about that.
Yeah. Also, 10-year-olds look like 10-year-olds.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple ones that not only could they not prove because of no evidence, but a lot of people are trying to put on him. Like I said he killed about 70, and he only got charged with 24 after the 3 were taken off of his record.
Wow. At least he got the same punishment no matter what.
So that was the Vampire of Hanover.
It wasn't the best of times.
It was the worst.
Okay, so my story is not really rough. It's pretty fun, and I will have you know that if we are ever in Sweden, we are spending the night at this place.
Okay.
It is required.
Sweden is on my list of places to go.
Sweden is on my list of places to go to. It's also beautiful.
I was also told that it might be tough for me to find food products I can eat there.
I feel like they eat a lot of fish.
Yes.
Yeah.
But so do a lot of places that I like going.
Do you know why Navy ships in Norway have the barcodes on the sides of them?
I read this on your...
So they can Scandinavian.
I read it and I was like...
You're like, shut up, Ty.
It's just... It was nothing. Nothing came out of my face. Damn you.
Well, okay, and we're going to see if you know what this one is, because I feel like you tend to know most of my stories.
I also listen. I drive a lot. I work in a shop where I can listen to things all day long, which is 10-hour workdays or more. Plus, I work at another job where I can spend 4 to 5 hours listening to noise. So all of my time is literally spent trying to curb no noise, which is why I know.
Which is podcasts, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to talk about Borgvattnet Vicarage.
Okay.
So Borgvattnet is a small village in Ragunda municipality in northern Sweden, and it's most renowned for its old vicarage, which was built in 1876.
Okay.
The plot of land that the vicarage was built on was chosen specifically so that the vicars and sometimes their families or the maids that lived there with them could utilize the land. Because back at that time, vicars were typically really involved in agriculture. Mm-hmm. So it was really important that since the vicarage was relatively far outside of town, that they were able to grow food for themselves.
Right. And I'm so happy that yours isn't terrible.
No, I mean, there's one sad thing that happened there, but it's
not
a
like
blip.
30.
It's a blip. We'll move past it, yeah. Per Hedlund and his wife Marta and their family, they lived at the Borgvattnet Vicarage from 1900 to 1908. In 1907, Marta died giving birth to their 11th child, and Per took it pretty hard.
Well, yeah.
So one of the stories I read said that he had buried her body in the backyard. Another says that he had kept it in the house. Another one says that he had brought it to morgue type of situation at the time. And everybody in the town had urged him to just bury her body, put her in a consecrated cemetery. And he didn't want to let go of it. He didn't want it to be so far away from him. So he finally agreed, kind of just to shut everybody up. And after they buried her body, he went ahead and he dug it up.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
he left town and took it with him.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
He was like, cool, thanks.
So that's already the first not super normal thing to happen around the vicarage.
No,
right?
totally.
So then, in the early 20th century, we've got a 19-year-old unmarried maid who had become pregnant by one of the vicars that lived there. Not a great look for him, not a great look for her.
No.
Obviously, that was frowned upon.
Yes, indeed.
And once she started showing, the vicar locked her up in an enclosure somewhere in the backyard. And after she had given birth to the baby, she killed it.
Oh.
And then the baby was buried on the land. It's said that they buried the baby right outside the window of the pink room.
Okay. What's with your color-named rooms also?
I'm living vicariously through these stories because I'm colorblind and I can't see these colors.
Oh, poor baby, though.
I know, it's really sad. The thing is, I saw multiple articles about that story, and they're all pretty consistent with each other, but I couldn't find any names associated with it, and I couldn't find an exact year. So it made me a little bit skeptical, but some of the paranormal activity in the house later on does kind of point to maybe that was a for real thing.
Okay.
The first haunting that was reported in the vicarage was in 1927 by resident vicar Nils Hedlund, who is one of Marta's sons.
Okay.
Because remember, she had 11 kids.
Yes, which, woof.
So he reported observing unseen hands tearing his laundry down from the clothesline in the attic,
That's
where
so
they were hanging up
rude.
to dry when he went up there one day to collect them.
That is so rude.
It is so rude. It's very aggressive.
It was clean. Now I have to wash it again, you turd.
I know. Well, the ghost was probably just really... They were like, you do this outside. Why are you doing this in the attic?
Maybe it was cold outside and he didn't want it to freeze.
For Sweden, that's pretty valid, yeah. The next priest to reside in the vicarage in the 1930s was Rudolf Tengden. While he was sitting in one room, he spotted an old woman wearing gray appear in a adjacent room nearby. So he got up to ask her what she was doing all up in his house and very confused about who she was and how she got in. And when he entered the room, she had just vanished.
Well, that's a ghost thing.
Oh, but there's a thing that happens in the story where something doesn't vanish, and it's really fantastic.
Okay, I'm ready.
So Tengden's successor, Otto Lindgren, lived in the vicarage in the 1940s. He and his wife heard unexplained sounds and saw objects move in the house all the time, apparently. They would hear disembodied steps in the hallway, and when they were sitting downstairs, they would hear them upstairs on the floor above them, obviously going to check and not finding anything there.
Right.
And a lot of times they heard music playing and coming from different parts of the house that, of course, they could never find the source of.
Right. I don't think I'd be mad at ghostly music as long as it was good.
Yeah. I'm not terrified of this place. I would definitely visit it.
Yeah, truly.
This is the thing I was talking about.
Okay.
I love this so much.
Okay.
It's so exciting. There's a room in the house that's called the Crying Ladies Room. One female visitor, Inga Floden, stayed in the guest room and was awoken in the middle of the night with a feeling that she was being watched.
Right.
In the room, there was a couch right across from the foot of the bed. And she looked at it and she saw 3 old women sitting on the couch staring at her. They all appeared to be crying as well.
Oh.
And as you do when there are 3 women sitting on a couch staring at you in a dark room, she freaked out and she got up and she turned on a light.
Right.
And when she looked at the couch, they were all still there.
No.
But when she turned on the light, they were there, but they appeared blurry until they, over the span of, I guess, a few seconds, started to dissipate entirely.
I've heard that too, because they show up through the veil or whatever you want to call the separation.
Yeah.
And then obviously more sensitive people can see it, but I've heard too that a lot of people tend to see out of their periphery because it's easier for them to be there without you having direct contact in light.
So that's another story where there are a couple different versions of it out there. The one that I gave you is the most popular one.
Okay.
This is a really fun version of that story. One thing that I did not see show up in all of the stories, but in a few of them, is that the couch that the ladies were sitting on, when she went to bed, that couch was not in the room.
Oh, that's so fun.
That couch was in a different part of the house.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's
when she
amazing.
woke up, not only are there ghost ladies staring at her, but there's also a piece of
redecorating.
furniture that's there, right? So she is real freaked out, and then she returns to bed. I don't know how the hell you're going to sleep after that.
Right.
And when she woke up in the morning, the couch had been gone again and back in its original spot.
And you're like, how you do this?
But like I said, so that's one version of the story.
Right.
Tales of supernatural events continued in the ensuing decades, with almost every new vicar and their family or their guests claiming to have experienced ghostly antics.
Amazing.
On the first floor of the vicarage, there is a kitchen and a dining room. Then there's the pink room, which is one of the more famous rooms in the house because there's a lot of activity in there. In the pink room, 3 people have reported seeing a man sitting at a table that disappears before their eyes slowly.
Okay.
Kind of like the 3 crying ladies.
Yes, yes.
The bed in the room will sometimes show depressions as though somebody is sitting on it. Furniture oftentimes moves around on its own. Now, on the second floor,